Yeah.
All right, hello and welcome.
All right.
Season 2 of Health in the Real World podcast, starting out with a buddy of mine, Jeremy Murphy. Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. This is awesome. I'm super happy to be here and have this wonderful discussion that we're about to have.
I'm glad to kick this off. Season 2, we're going a little different. We're not talking specifically about what we do for a living. We're going a little bigger, a little more humanistic. In today's episode, we dive into the importance of embracing every step of your journey. Life's challenges are not roadblocks, they're opportunities to learn and to evolve. So I share stories with individuals who turn setbacks into comebacks, reminding us that resilience is our greatest strength. So Jeremy, let's go right to it. We'll learn a lot about you, a lot about me today, talking about struggles, talking about the journey. What struggles have you overcome?
That's a big question.
Huge question. We're going straight to it.
And well, there's been a lot in a variety of ways, but the most apparent and the biggest ones have been centering around relationships, mostly divorce about 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago. That process, and then even after that, going through after my divorce, dating, and then finding a woman that I thought were a person that was a fit for me, and ended up not being a good fit for me. So going through that process as well, and also the relationships that were either gained or lost during the process of both of those things. We talked about, you and I yesterday talked about fans versus supporters, family and how they react when you go through these kinds of things, young people that you might be responsible for, and how to manage their emotions and how to manage your relationship with them. So I've been through all of those struggles in regards to all of those relationships and trying to manage those relationships, or in some cases, let go of relationships.
Yeah. I love that concept. We'll go right to that. Fans versus supporters. This is one thing I really appreciated, that explanation that you talked about yesterday. You talked about how some people jump ship when you went through your divorce, and so what is the distinction between fans and supporters, friends? And what are you looking for? Like, I thought this was a really good distinction because you're talking about friends.
Right.
Sorry, you make the distinction a lot better. Go for it.
So, yeah, no problem. Break it down for you, because I think a lot of people will be able to relate to this. So this in particular seems to happen. It seems to happen specifically with men, specifically when they go through a divorce, right? This is a specific situation. Now, it can happen in virtually any type of relationship dynamic change situation. But when I've seen it happen the most, like the most severe, we're in these situations, specifically with men, and specifically going through divorce. So what tends to happen is, it's your fault, right? If you're the man, it's me, and there's a divorce that's happening, it's your fault. Or even a breakup that's happening, it's your fault. That's the stigma. That's what people tend to believe, without knowing any of the facts, by the way, or very little. It's just automatic. So then from there, what tends to happen is that since it's your fault, you're the bad guy, which means then I'm going to be on their side. I'm going to be on the other person's side. So I have people that I've known and called friends, even called family, since the 7th grade, who we grew up together, high school, college, kept in touch, married, went to each other's weddings, kids, went to each other's, baby showers and birthday parties and all this stuff. But when I got my divorce, these people disappeared. I have 5 particular people that I used to call friends / family. And they might have texted me from the moment they knew I was getting a divorce to this day. They might have texted me 5 times total. Not each, 5 times total, maybe. And that's over the course of 5 or 6 years. Why? Well, I was wondering why at one point. Now I know why, right? They chose a side. Now, why they felt they need to choose a side? But it extends even further than that. I have other friends from college that also decided to choose a side, and so on and so forth. Even some of my family members. And I didn't. Look, I wanted peace, and I wanted a different kind of relationship. I didn't cheat on this person. I didn't do anything vile or negative or violent to this person. None of that. I just recognized we were different, and I said we should go our different ways, right?
Right.
Just to be clear. But anyway, people decided to take sides. So the conclusion I came to as I was trying to figure this out, when I was speaking with my coach or my therapist, and even my friends and family, the people that remain close to me, I was trying to understand what this dynamic was. And one of my friends expressed it to me like this. He's actually a good friend of mine. He's on my team. He expressed it like this. He was like, those people that did that to you, they weren't the ones that switched sides. They weren't your friend anyway, right?
Mm.
The gentleman that's reflecting this to me, and he also, he also is aware enough to, at some distance, maintain a relationship with my ex-wife, just in terms of like we're friends. Like I don't have anything against her, but you're my guy, right? He's aware enough to not have to take sides and still find a way to support me so we can maintain our close relationship, as opposed to just taking sides because you decide you want to take sides, right? So friends and supporters fans and supporters. Our fans are people that were on your team, that were cheering for you, that were down for you when you were up. Like you were a football player, like you're a basketball player, like you're a celebrity. They're down for you when you're up. They're all about it when you're up. But when you're down, they don't even want to know why you're down. They don't want to know if it's your fault. They don't want to know if it's right or wrong. They just know that you're down. And they jump ship immediately. And some of them not only jump ship, but some of them jump on the other side and decide that they want to attack you.
Wow. So fans, okay, I like that distinction. So fans are those people who are with you when you're at the top. Those are we can even call them fair weather fans, right?
Yeah.
And then the supporters, even if you're going through something, you're going through a divorce, you're going through anything else, they will still be there. And I like that, supporters really truly have your back. And I like what we were talking about yesterday too. So, whether it's divorce, whether it's like bankruptcy, which I've been through both of those, or losing friends, or death of a close friend. 4 or 5 years ago, really good friend of mine was 36 years old, died out of nowhere. He was one of the healthiest guys I knew. That rocked my world. And so whatever it is, I mean, at the expense of sounding a little bit cliched, but as we go through these experiences, it's so true that nobody can really take anything from you. They can take things. They can take your money. They can take your belongings, or you can lose a friend, but they can't take that person who you become, right? And it's like, I think the analogy I love using, and you and I are both fitness guys, is the workout analogy. It's those really hard workouts that really help to create that muscle. And you can't get big and buff and full of muscle unless you've been through some workouts. Same thing with the life, right? You get that emotional intelligence, that almost like those scars, those scabs that we can really learn from.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
What is like, let's move to this. I love the good Batman, bad Batman, moving from nice guy to good guy. What's wrong with being a nice guy? What are some potential downfalls? What is this good Batman, bad Batman story you have? I love this story.
Okay, so I'm gonna share the story, the idea that I have, where I got the concept. But to answer your very first question, this is super important. I was actually thinking about this even more after our conversation. It's very important to not only make the distinction between a nice guy and a good man, but also for people, men in particular, to start to understand this difference and navigate away from the nice guy. Here are a couple of things that happen with a nice guy. You and I are talking about this. Typically, if you're a nice guy, what happened in my situation is, when I was growing up, I grew up watching a very unhealthy relationship dynamic between my mom and my stepfather. My mom was all of 4'11", my stepfather was like 6 foot, something like that, and my mom is feisty, and they would fist fight. So I grew up watching my mom trying to fight this mountain of a man. And my main takeaway from that was, I'm going to be everything that's opposite of him. And I think in some way, shape, or form, this happens to a lot of what ends up being nice guys. There's something about the masculine energy there where you see a version of it that's so violent and so vile that you make a conscious and even subconscious decision to go the exact opposite direction. But then herein lies the problem. The problem is you become not only do you become a doormat, essentially, for everybody, but you become a person who you're so afraid of what you saw and what you thought masculine was, that you can't actually embody anything masculine at all. What ends up happening is you become a very feminized type man. And then what ends up happening is you end up most likely getting in a long-term relationship with a more masculine type women. And when that happens, at some point in time, the masculine in the woman will get very, this is just my experience of what I've noticed what happened to other men, will get very agitated and irritated and even angry that she's maintaining the masculine and you're not. And that anger will come back to bite you. That anger will come out on you, right? So that's how I see my growth and how my relationships played out. That's how I see it, and I see that happening in other men. But in order to get to the Batman story, it actually goes a little bit deeper than that. Is that men have to move away from the nice guy and move more toward the good man, because the good man is actually more balanced. And here's the example. In the comic books, there's a story, a Batman story where it's actually, Justice League story, where essentially the good guy Justice League ends up, in a confrontation with the bad guy version of Justice League. They end up in each other's universes. Okay, Chris, if you're still there, if you're still hearing me,
I'm here. I'm just spotlighting you.
All right, so good guy Justice League, bad guy Justice League. Good guys end up in the bad guys universe. Everything's reversed, and so they end up fighting each other, right? Good woman, Wonder Woman, bad Wonder Woman, good Superman, Ultraman, Batman, Owlman, all this stuff, and there's a whole story around it, right? But essentially, it's called Crisis on Two Earths, one of my personal favorites. Now, whether or not you believe or are interested in comic books, that's not the point. One of the reasons why people actually like comic books, men in particular, is there's a lot of good story, a lot of good human story that's told through them. The same way good stories are told through any other genre, right? Yeah. That we watch and love. But at the very end of this story, the good Batman, actual Batman, and bad Batman, Owlman, end up fighting. And they're fighting for the sake of all life, not just their universes, but all life everywhere. Good Batman is getting his butt kicked. He's losing. He ends up getting the upper hand. And at the very end, he says, before he finishes the Owlman, at the very end, he says, go watch this when you get a chance. Because I'm be curious to see what you think. But the good Batman says to Owlman, right as he gets the upper hand, before he finishes him off, he says, we both looked into the abyss, but you blinked. And he doesn't move, finishes him off, right? Now, I've watched this several times. The first time I watched this was probably 7 years ago. It's an old one. And I've thought about this. It stayed in my head, obviously. And I thought, what does that mean, right? Because it's not just a cartoon. It's something that there's something that the writers are trying to say. What are they trying to say? We both looked into the abyss, right? Because if you know anything about Batman and alternate universes, they have the same backstory. We both looked into the abyss. But when you looked, you blinked. That's what Batman says to Owlman. So this is what I gathered from this. You feel free to have your own interpretation. This is what I gathered from this. Batman has as a character, has stood the test of time because he is one of the very few characters that has literally and figuratively decided that he's going to be good, but also integrated parts of what's negative or parts of the bad or parts of the darkness. He is the good in the darkness, right? He's integrated the darkness into himself, into his personality, into his psyche. And as a result, when you do that, what happens is you have to be able to see the negative aspects of all humanity. You have to be able to see how dark humanity can be. And then you have to be able to say, I'm a part of that as well. Mm-hmm. I can be that dark as well. There's a part of me that could go there as well.
Yeah.
That's step 2. Step 3 is I choose not to.
Yes.
Right? And that's what Batman is. So Batman was saying to Owlman, you looked at the darkness of humanity. But when you looked, you blinked. It scared you so much that you decided you wanted to eradicate all humanity. But for me, I didn't blink because I recognize that I have that same darkness. So I'm going to integrate that and use that to try to stop people in the right way. You know, bring people to justice, put them in jail. I'm only going to go, so I'm going to use the darkness, literally and figuratively. Shadows, you know, he's flying around in the darkness. Right? I'm going to use the darkness. I'm going to use the darkness in myself. I'm going to use the darkness as a character.
Yeah.
To bring people to justice, but I'm not going to go past the point where the darkness consumes me.
Yes.
That's the difference between a nice guy and a good man. A good man, because a good man is a person that's strong. I believe he's a person of faith. He has some kind of faith that he follows because that gives him direction, it gives him order, it helps him stay focused. But he's also capable of violence. That's the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
A good man is capable of violence. And because a good man is capable of violence, two things happen. People fear him and people respect him. Right? So his family respects him. So his kids will only push so much. His woman will only push him so much. And he draws the line, right? And people fear him, which means they don't come to his doorstep. They don't bring nonsense. They don't bring violence to their doorstep because they recognize that if they do, violence will come back to them.
Right.
It's a level of violence that they don't want to deal with, right? A nice guy is not capable of that. Therefore,
Right.
a nice guy gets walked over by everyone.
There's an element with the nice guy. By the way, Neil, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your comment. There's an element to the nice guy of like almost like he gets pushed left and right with the ebbs of what's happening outside of him. I like your distinction because to become a good man, you need to realize there is a choice right here, right? You see, like you said, you see that darkness within yourself. I remember I majored in history in college, and I had a teacher tell us, we were talking about Nazi Germany, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my teacher basically in a nutshell said, what makes you think you're any different than any of these German people who went along with the crowd
Great
and were
point.
ratting out their Jewish neighbors? We are all the same. We just happen to be put in this day and time.
Great point.
Very grateful that we live in this year 2023 because I think it's a lot easier to be a good man,
Right.
and maybe harder in certain respects as well. But yeah, I believe it lends itself that you realize you have a choice. You do have the choice to go down this dark path and be a owl man, right?
Right.
But Batman chooses the good. And if he didn't have that choice, he wouldn't be a good superhero. He wouldn't be a good man because then it would just be like predestined for him, right? There always has to be that choice.
It's the choice that makes Batman interesting and intriguing.
Right.
Not the gadgets and all the other stuff. It's the choice that he constantly has to make in his stories between where's that line, how much do I want to cross it, and how do I figure out this situation in a way that's congruent with my beliefs, my values, without allowing the darkness to consume me. That's his constant kind of struggle. And that's another reason why, if we want to get a little deeper, that's another reason why the Joker, who has no real power, is one of the best villains of all time. Because the Joker, his primary goal is to try to push Batman past that line. And there's no other kind of dynamic like that in all of comic book that I can think of. But here's the thing, in my opinion, that is life. Joker is the lesser you. Batman is the greater you, right? Joker is the lesser you, Batman is the greater you. And there's this constant battle between where is that line, where is that point, who is that person, who's that situation that's going to push you past where your value is, where your line is, and if you do that, then what happens? But can you manage the situation? Can you find a solution without going over the line? Right. That's their constant dynamic. And that's the constant dynamic in all of us. So, by the way, I want to take this a step further because we were talking about this yesterday. Yeah. So the thing about, part of the reason why that's so important in terms of relationships, going back to being able to integrate the darkness, if we take it kind of more to, our moment, just more modern times now, all good men are also able, because they've integrated the darkness in themselves, they can recognize the darkness in others. So when somebody moves a little weird, they're like, nope. When somebody says something a little funny, they're like, And the reason why that's so important is because that makes that man a better protector, provider, presider. Because that man then can say, they can look at, for example, I know gentlemen like yourself who have daughters. I only have boys, but I know gentlemen have daughters, right? Daughter brings home boyfriend, maybe they're in high school. You check the boyfriend out, you say, dude, you look him up and down, you say a couple things, right? You pull your daughter aside, you say, not him. She said, what? Don't trust me, not him. Not him, right? Your wife, your girlfriend wants to go out, with the girl somewhere. You meet a couple of her friends. They say something a little weird. They act a little funny. Not them. Not them, right? And how this is so important because it's not about control. It's about being able to see the darkness, being able to see bad stuff coming to your doorstep and make a decision that keeps everyone safe before it actually happens. You don't make the decision while while the Joker is driving around the corner, not when he's at your front door,
Right.
not when he's inside your house, right?
Well,
That's our job.
right.
That's part of our makeup. That's what we try to do. Some people misconstrue it and call it control. It's not control, it's protection.
Yes. Big difference between control and protection. Well, there's a lot of terms out there, right? Like going back to what you were talking about at the beginning of the episode about when a man doesn't step up into his role as a good man and he's just a nice guy, right? Pushed around.
Right.
That relationship where the woman will tend to have to be the more masculine figure.
Right.
Then and I think a lot in our culture now, there's sort of this push and pull against this. There's the term toxic masculinity. And I think I would say like, well, you probably experienced as a kid seeing actual physical fighting.
Mm-hmm.
That I think we can call toxic masculinity. There's nothing that's noble about a man, getting physical with his wife or girlfriend like that. And then going to the absolute other extreme, instead of saying, I'm going to see that and see that we all have the potential for violence. We all have that in us, but I'm going to choose peace, justice, protection, all those things. We go more toward, like we were talking about this yesterday, more toward like doormat, letting other people push me around, things like that. And it takes a lot of pain before we finally say, no, I'm done with this. I'm not going to allow this to happen. And like you said, heading off the Joker before he gets to our front door, right? Like you can see those signs, right? In my daughter's boyfriends in the future, or like if my son's 11, if he does something and then he goes, and I call him out on it. He goes, how did you know? I say, dude, I used to be you. That's how I know. I've learned that way, right? So we can learn and like you said, integrating those into our personality, because we all have it. We are all Joker and all Batman, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
brother. Exactly. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of words thrown around toxic masculinity and a newer one, toxic femininity. And then, so I think a better distinction would be to say that is a toxic person.
I like
that's a toxic man. That's a toxic woman. Femininity and masculinity, I believe those words need to be protected so that I can say, that's a really feminine woman. I like that. That's attractive to me, right? Well, is she toxic or is she? Oh, no, I said that's a feminine woman. That inherently means that she's good, beautiful, good natured, supportive, all that stuff, right? That's a masculine man. Well, is he a toxic man or is he? No. I said he's a masculine man.
Right.
Which means that he's good, he's faithful, he's focused, he's purposeful, he's a protector. Right?
I like that.
Now, if I said that's a toxic person, if I said that's a toxic male, that's a toxic female, I'm talking about one individual. But if I'm talking about an archetype, if I'm talking about a way of being, I prefer not to give that, because if I say it's a way of being, it should be inherently positive, right?
Sure.
Those terms, I think, should be protected as inherently positive. That way, we get away from labeling groups of people, and we can just say one person.
Yes.
Right? Or maybe like a handful, but we just say, this person is toxic. That man is toxic. That woman is toxic. That we just keep it like focused. And it's that, all men are toxic. All women are toxic. If you believe that, then you
I agree. I actually think that's a big thing that is a sign of maturity. If you can get rid of all the labels, whether it's male, female, black, white, young, old, rich, poor, right? And let's look at this one individual and what is their morality? What type of a person are they as an individual? Right. Speaking of rich, poor, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, about the rich have too much, right? Yeah. They should share with us, with all of us. What's wrong with this mindset?
Yeah, man, the rich have too much, man. They should give some of us back to us.
They should pay their fair share.
So here's the thing. There's levels to the game. There's levels to the game of life, right? So at a certain level, at the highest level, my belief is none of it matters, right? Because we're souls, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. The next life, I'm gonna be you and you're gonna be me.
Yep.
Next life after that, I'm gonna be Bill Gates
and you're going to be Jeff Bezos. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Life after that will be fish. Who cares, right? At a higher
Right.
level, it doesn't matter. And the only reason I say that is because it takes the steam out of some of these arguments. Right?
Yeah.
We have to recognize that at some level, like your life is your own, right? And each experience will be a little bit different every time you come back around. Okay, that's a higher level that some people may not be interested in or be ready for. But on another level, if we bring it back down a little bit, the reality is this: people that have, not all of them, but the majority of them, people that have a lot, they built a lot because they learned a lot. They learned the system, they learned the game, and they learned how to make the game work in their favor. They know things that you and I don't know. They make moves that you and I don't make, or maybe we don't make enough of. And they do it often, and they have leverage. They have leverage either in terms of their staff, leverage in terms of people helping them so that it shaves off their time. They have leverage with the way they invest their money. They have leverage with the way that they influence people. They have leverage that puts them in positions to have more that we don't have yet. But they learned how to do that at some point.
Right.
And most of the people that have, they learned how to do that at some point, which means even if you were to take away everything that they have right now, if you were to say Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, maybe Donald Trump, I don't know if he has anything left, but these people, like, you have to give away all of your money and you have to start with $100 in your bank account, right? They could be like, and in 7 years or less, they'd have the same amount again. Mm-hmm. Because they still have the name, they still have the know-how, they still have the influence, they still have people that want to work for them, they still have people that want to learn from them, they still have people that want to be mentored by them, they still have people that want to get success with them, right? Yep. They still have people I know that you know stuff I don't know, so whatever I have to do, I'm on your team. Whatever, there's still people that work for free just to be by that knowledge, just to glean some of that information, right? So where would that put the rest of us? We would just spend whatever. It doesn't matter. Right. So what matters is the person you become when you have those things, not the things.
I love it. Yeah, exactly. The person you become on your way to the material wealth or whatever it is, health, fitness, whatever. This is a good ending. We're already 30 minutes into this. Time flies.
Oh, man. Can we go longer?
I wanted to end with this.
I also have time now. I also have time.
I know. Again, like season 2, I wanted to go big with this, go very big picture. Like you talked about, you could come back a fish next lifetime, all that great stuff. We could go down 10 different rabbit holes, but ultimately what I wanted was just this one-on-one conversation. This is where all the magic happens. We realize that we have these ideas and we can exchange them and relate to each other. And hopefully some people watching gain some in the process as well. Jeremy, quick outro. How do people get in touch with you? Where are you located? Everything like that.
So I'm pretty easy to get in touch with. I'm mostly on Facebook at Jeremy D. Murphy. I'm on YouTube at jeremyd.murphy. And I have my website. You can find me. You can send me a message via my website I'm at www.jeremydmurphy.com. And one thing I would like to say, if I could, if you don't mind, is I'd like to remind people that the journey is the reward, right? Because this particular episode is about the journey. The journey is the reward, which is to say that it's not getting there. That's awesome. It's who you become, like we were just talking about, who you become, what you learn, and who comes with you on the path of what you become, on the path of getting there. So it's not making the $100 million that matters. It's what you learn and who you pick up on the way and the person you become on the way to making the $100 million.
Those true supporters.
Yes, the supporters you gain. And also the fans you lose. You learn both on both sides. Yeah. But that way we stay focused on, we have goals, we have purpose, and that's good and that's important. But also we don't lose sight of I'm growing every day. As long as I stay on it, I'm growing every day. And that brings value to not only me, but the people that I love, support, that are around me, that are running with me. Yeah.
100%. Well, Jeremy, thanks for joining me today. We'll be in touch. Episode 1, season 2 in the books. Thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah, thanks, brother. It was awesome.
All right.